Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Rebecca from Data Care. Yes, we're going to be using one, maybe if Matthew could help me give a summary of the point of this call, and then we'll start in like 5 minutes from now.
Good morning. The purpose of this session is actually to start off our mentorship program, and it's mainly for the students. However, the lecturers are also free to join in, and I see, at least I see Mr. Iga on, and the purpose of having the lecturers on is to actually be able to support students along the way, considering they will always be on ground. So the training sessions that will happen all through, a number of times we shall have lecturers from Ndejje also joining in. Sometimes, of course, we will see our dean also joining in for purposes of delivering certain communications. And the whole goal of the session is to equip the students with practical skills. It is to equip students with practical skills that which they can easily. The focus here is always on software development processes. So everybody is allowed to jump in, and what we want to do is as reward to the attendees, for those that will stick to this, mostly for the year twos, this for some people can be part or will be considered as your internship. Discussions are still ongoing to zero down onto exactly people who are not presenting, please, it would be nice if you mute. Yeah, so this can be an opportunity for you to forego paid internship, okay? And then for people who are doing degree, okay, you always have end of year project. Now, this whole training is going to have a series of modules because we have a product at the end of it all, okay? We shall have a series of modules. So if you take part in the development and implementation of a particular module, you will only be required to write a report, okay, for your final year project. Okay? Now that is not an area that we are still discussing, but it's something that we have chosen to do. So in a nutshell, you will not suffer looking around for research projects, what solution to implement, etc. Okay? You'll already be involved in the implementation of a solution which is usable, and at the end of it all, you'll be able to just submit your report and you'll be awarded whatever results. Okay, so that is in a nutshell that I can give. I don't want to talk about the solution. Okay, I would love to have the trainers be able to talk about this solution at the end of it all. So I hand over back to you, Monica.
Thank you, Mr. Bazanye. Because we've spent most of our time, at this point, I'm going to, just to give a little clarification. These sessions are going to be happening every Wednesday from 11 to midday, and the content will be shared in a Google Classroom, so that in case you missed, which I pray doesn't happen, you'll be able to follow up. But for today, we are going to start with looking into requirements gathering, which is going to come in handy when the time comes to implement the solution that Mr. Bazanya has been talking about. So without wasting more time, I'm going to invite Harriet, who is our facilitator for today, to take us through.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So, I'm Harriet Awili. I'm the Quality Assurance Manager at Data Care, and I'm going to be taking you through today's session. I'll be sharing based on my understanding and my experience, but I will ask that you default to what has been taught in class in case there's any deviation. So this is what we're going to cover today. Requirements collection, which is a very critical part of the process. We'll look at user stories and test cases, and then if time allows, we'll have some time for questions and answers. Okay, so I hope the students have had a little bit of experience on this. I don't know, Matthew, if that is the case.
Because I don't handle all course units, I cannot say yes or no, but considering it is necessary, it would be nice that it's carried on. Otherwise, Mr. Iga may have to chip in here just to advise if really people have gone through this.
I'm not here very well.
Sorry?
They should have gone through this if they are through research methods, but I'm not the one taking research methods, so I can't say yes or no. It depends. We are dealing with this third years, second years, which students are in this platform right now. If they are third years, they should have gone through research methods, and this one is covered.
Okay. That's all right. We can proceed. So we're starting with the requirements collection. This, as you know, is the first stage of the software development lifecycle, ending with handover of the system and support. And as I mentioned, it's the most critical stage. Here we must make sure that everything that the client wants us to implement is what is implemented. Therefore, we have to make sure that this stage is taken seriously. It involves all the primary stakeholders. These are all the people whose input is very critical to the process. In the data care structure, we have project managers, we have quality assurance officers who are also the testers, and then the client. And in some cases, we also involve the system developers in this stage so that they hear the requirements straight from the client. So all the primary stakeholders are required. You may not have such a large team. There are those that are secondary, but you also want to make sure that the information that you get is not coming from too many sources, because a lot of people will give you differing requirements. So you make sure to stick to the primary ones. So it's a continuous process. We here at DataCare, we continue having review meetings with the client where because we use the agile methodology, we present a prototype to the clients after every 2 weeks or so, and there we get feedback. So the feedback process continues throughout the development of the software. And as your collection requirements, you have to make sure to collect both the functional and the non-functional requirements. So of course, the functional requirements are those that have to do with what the system should do in terms of functionality, and the non-functional is how the system should behave. So sometimes people focus more on what the system should do and forget how it should behave, but the behavior of the system is also very critical. And we'll look at some of the breakdowns of the non-functional requirements. So moving on, once we collect all the requirements, we compile them into the software or the systems requirements specification document. This is where the requirements are all written down and compiled. And on top of listing them as in a text format, we also go ahead and create use case diagrams and narratives.
No, I will not hear very well. This guy is reading his beard. The way he's reading.
All right. Saying on top of listing down the requirements in a Word format, we also go ahead and break them down into use case diagrams so that we have a better understanding of the use cases. The use cases are the functionalities that each actor, each system user is going to perform in the system. And we also add the narratives. So the narratives help us really to understand the requirements further. This is usually done by the quality assurance officer, the system analyst, or the project manager. So we also develop wireframes. Those are the screen mockups, or as we understand, and then we present these to the client so that they can sign them off. That is the final point. It must be signed off by both the client and the consultant. The consultant in this case is DataCare, before we commence development work. So before you both have the same understanding of the project, you should not go ahead with it, because later on there may be conflicts arising. So here at DataCare, it is in our processes that the SRS must be signed off before we begin work. Okay, so we have seen what requirements are when they're gathered. So how are they going to be collected? Obviously, we have meetings with the client. We have the initial meeting where we are largely focusing on listening to what the client wants. And then we have the meetings that are conducted throughout the development of the project. So here we usually have them bi-weekly or weekly. You can also have monthly meetings. We also conduct interviews. These are largely done before the project is commenced. This is where we hear from the client how they do their day-by-day processes in regards to the project, in regards to the software that they want. So if they want a software that maybe handles procurement, you listen to the client on how their procurement process actually is implemented, and then you translate that into requirements for the software. Also, sometimes conduct workshops. This is an event that lasts from 2 to 5 days usually, where we listen to the client as well and hear what they would want, how they want their software to be implemented. We also conduct document analysis. Sometimes we also ask for templates, the actual documents that the client uses. For example, if we go ahead with our example use of procurement, we ask them, what forms do you use in the procurement department? So based on those templates, we can also use those to design the software by simply translating those documents into forms and processes in the system. We also conduct market research. So as you're developing software, you make sure not only to develop what the client wants, but to exceed expectations. So conducting market research is seeing what other procurement systems are there out in the market, what functionalities can we adopt from competitors and other organizations, and what can we put into this project that the client wants us to develop. And lastly, we have observation. So here you may go into the workplace of the client and see how they perform their tasks. There are some things they may not tell you, but you observe it as they're implementing it, and if it can be translated into the system, then you go ahead with it. So what is a good requirement? Some requirements you collect may not actually help you, but you need to look out for certain things as you're documenting your requirements. So they should be correct. You want to make sure that the understanding that you have from the client is what they actually want. So yes, requirements may change from time to time, but the nature of it should not change. So if they say, I want a system that allows all users to log in with a username and password, later they should not say you should only log in with a username. So it means the initial requirement was not correct. So you must make sure that the requirement is correct. And this is done really through interactions with the client and probing to understand the requirement better. The requirement should be clear. You, the developer, the tester, the project manager, everyone involved in the project should understand it. So it should be clear to all of you on the development side. It should be consistent, meaning that a requirement that you get should not conflict or contradict with another requirement. So if they say login with a username and password, later they shouldn't say that system users should not have passwords. Those requirements conflict. So all the requirements that you get should be consistent with each other. They should be feasible. That means you should know that you're able to implement it. If you're not able to do scanning, fingerprint scanning or retinal scanning, you should not accept that requirement, or you should look for an alternative. It should be atomic. That means it should be to its lowest level. A requirement should not have a sub-requirement in there that is unknown to you. Each requirement should be to its lowest level. And then it should be testable. You should be able to say, based on this requirement, these are the tests that I can run to make sure that, for me to verify that everything has been implemented. So these are some of them, but I know that there are others out there. Briefly, because I know you've studied this already, types of requirements, they're in two large categories. That's